This week we are going to learn about hardware. There are a lot of basic skills that you need to know when it comes to hardware and taking care of hardware, but you should also know how to troubleshoot hardware, how to make some basic upgrades, how to connect peripherals, and that's what this chapter is about. So, the first thing you need to know is what is a computer and what does it do? In today's society, kids love computers and everybody thinks they're tech savvy because um, they're on computers all the time. But to a teenager, to a third grader, they love their computers because their friends live inside of it. They love their phones because that's what they do is they connect to their friends that way. Um, there's still skills that we need to build up with them. They're comfortable with computers, but if you watch what students do and and children do with computers, it really comes down to they game on it, they Facebook, they tweet, but they don't use it really to think a lot. Those skills have to be taught to them. How to use a computer to analyze data, to find data, to research data, and that's why we need to be good at it. I have some aging parents, and we used to joke with my father, especially because he spent $4,000 in the 90s on this wonderful computer, and then he sat all day and played solitaire on it. So, no, that is not what a computer is. It is not the most expensive game of cards. So, now that you know what a computer is, or what it is not, here's what you should understand about computers. What a computer really does is it takes data. That data is then input into a system. And the way that data is input, typically we think of keyboards and entering keyboards, but they also have hardware or peripherals that are called scanners, which will scan documents into, and then read the characters on that paper and put it into the system. The interesting thing about this is that you can also input using audio, as I'm doing now. And the interesting thing is that when you are keyboarding, typically there's an error for every 300 keystrokes. However, if you scan or you audio input, which is much faster, then there is one error per every million characters. People today, though, they really are attached to those keyboards, so that's what we use. You take that input and it's put together in a way that creates information. And then that information is stored inside your computer. So that's basically what we call the information processing cycle. And then once it's stored, then you have to output it in some way. And some devices that you might think of as outputting might be on your computer screen. That is a form of output. Printers are a form of output. Audio is a form of output. So once that data is processed, then you have to output it in some way because otherwise it just sits there and it's not used. So here's the information processing cycle. And as you can say, you take data that's not in any logical format, input it into a computer, apply some type of code so that it organizes it into information. That information is stored until that information is used or output into some way so that that information can be used. So now this is how a computer manages that information processing cycle. This is hardware. Hardware is anything, including the computer, that attaches to the computer, is used with the computer. It's an input device, an output device, a processing device. This is your system. And as you can see from this picture, you have cameras, you have hard drives, external hard drives. You have cameras that might hook into your computer, your mouse, your keyboards, your printers. There's all kinds of devices that are part of the whole hardware system. Those hardware systems can't be useful unless they have some kind of code to process that information or software. Software is what makes the computer operate. So here's some categories of hardware computers. You have your personal computers, as you can see here. Personal computers are generally components or systems that sit on a desktop or sit underneath your desk, that are separate from the monitor and the keyboard. Those are peripheral devices that are attached to what is called the CPU, or the central processing unit. You also have mobile computers and mobile devices, laptops, iPads, ebook readers, cell phones. These are mobile. In other words, you don't have to sit in one location. You can take them with you wherever you go. Computers are also game consoles. The Wii system, the Xbox system, they are actually computers. In fact, one of the best computers, the military at one point used PS3, hooked six or seven of them up, and had one of the strongest computers in the world processing their data. And then finally, you have what are called servers, supercomputers, and embedded computers. And what these are is places like Facebook. They have these supercomputers that store all that information. I mean, if you think about the millions and millions and billions of people that upload onto Facebook, they're putting pictures and videos and statuses and all kinds of information. That information has to be stored somewhere. It just doesn't float out into, the ether and then have, we just go grab it. No, it's got to be stored on drives somewhere. And that's where these servers, these supercomputers, and these embedded computers come into play. And now there's what we call digital multimedia and digital multimedia computers. And this is how computers have developed to adapt to all of this visual and audio media that we encounter. I remember I guess it was about 1992, I was in charge of evaluating software for a company that I worked for. And up to that point, we operated on what was called a DOS operating. It was a DOS operating system, and that was all the codes that you wanted. If you wanted to open a file in the word processing, you would open file. You had to type the words open file. And my boss gave me the Windows 3.5 disk. Now remember, up to that point, I had 100% control over everything that my computer was programmed with. I put in that Windows 3.5 to download it, and it took over my computer. And of course, I looked at my boss and said, "You know what? I'm done. I can't keep up with this technology." Um, but I did. It's just that there's a lot of things going on in the background that, there are programmers that know about all that stuff, but I don't have any desire to. So, um, when that came out, when Windows came out, this company called Prodigy came out with graphic interface um, internet, where you could see pictures, and from there it just took off. You had AOL, and the computers had to, all this data that was being transferred had to be stored in some place. And so computers, as the need and the desire for more information and more visuals and more graphics and more software to manage those graphics came out, that's what happened. So this is how computers and digital media have kind of pushed us to where we are today.